Most people will never ask the one question that could change everything. Not because they're incapable of asking it, not because life is too busy or the world too loud, but because somewhere deep inside they already sense the answer, and the answer terrifies them. The question is this: is the life I am living actually mine? Friedrich Nietzsche asked that question in the 19th century, and the world called him mad. But madness has a strange way of becoming prophetic, because if you look around today, at the quiet desperation behind polished social media profiles, at careers chosen for approval, at relationships maintained out of fear of loneliness, you begin to realize something uncomfortable. Most people are not living. They are performing living. And the tragedy is not that they don't know this. The tragedy is that some part of them does know, and they've learned to silence that part with enough noise, routine, and distraction to make it through another day. Nietzsche called this the life of the herd, not as an insult, as a diagnosis. The herd is not made up of stupid people. It is made up of people who have quietly agreed, often without ever consciously deciding, to trade meaning for safety, to trade their authentic desires for social acceptance, to trade the fire of a real self for the comfort of belonging. And the herd rewards this trade generously. It gives you approval. It gives you predictability. It gives you the feeling that you are not alone. What it takes in return is something most people don't notice they've given away, until it's almost too late. It takes your will. Nietzsche's central idea was this: human beings are not born with meaning. Meaning is not a gift from the universe. It is not handed down by tradition, religion, society, or anyone else. Meaning is something you create through values you consciously choose, through suffering you consciously endure, through a self you consciously forge. He called this the will to power, and people constantly misunderstand it. It is not about dominating others. It is not about wealth or status or control. The will to power, in its truest form, is the drive to become more than you currently are, to push against your own limits, to look at comfort and choose challenge, to look at the easy path and ask, does this path lead anywhere I actually want to go? Most people never ask that question, and so they never really live. Here is the first hidden pattern Nietzsche identified, and it is still everywhere today. People choose borrowed values over authentic ones. From childhood, you are handed a set of beliefs about what matters. Success looks like this, a good life looks like that. Happiness is this combination of things. And because these beliefs come from people you love, from systems you were raised inside, from cultures that surrounded you before you had the language to question them, you absorb them without realizing you had a choice. You build a life around values that were never truly yours. And then, years later, you feel a hollow ache you cannot explain. You have done everything right. You have followed every instruction. And still, something is missing. That ache is not depression. It is not ingratitude. It is the sound of your real self, buried under someone else's blueprint, knocking on the walls of your chest. Meaning cannot be inherited. It can only be earned through the act of choosing. The second pattern is more insidious. Nietzsche called it resentment, and it is the psychological poison that turns unlived lives into bitter ones. Resentment is what happens when a person cannot create meaning for themselves, so they begin to destroy it in others. You see this in the person who mocks ambition they secretly want, in the one who frames every success story as luck, corruption, or privilege, because acknowledging genuine effort would force them to confront their own stagnation. In the culture that rewards mediocrity and punishes excellence, not out of fairness, but out of fear. Resentment is resentment that has gone underground. It wears the mask of moral judgment. It tells you that wanting more is arrogant, that standing out is dangerous, that living fully is somehow a betrayal of those who don't. It is the voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" And if you are not careful, you will mistake that voice for your conscience. The third pattern is the deepest, and it is the one Nietzsche returned to again and again. Most people live in a state he called nihilism, not the dramatic kind, not the kind you announce at a dinner party, but the quiet, creeping kind. The kind where you go through each day without ever asking whether it means anything. Where you set goals not because they call to you, but because having goals feels better than facing the emptiness of having none. This is the person who is always about to start living, after the promotion, after the relationship, after the children are grown, after things settle down. Nietzsche's warning was brutal in its clarity. The person who postpones meaning indefinitely will eventually run out of time and realize too late that they were never waiting for the right moment. They were running from the responsibility of being the author of their own life. Meaning does not arrive. It is built, it is fought for, and it costs something real. So what does it actually mean to live with meaning, not as philosophy, but as practice? It means you must become willing to disappoint people. Not carelessly, not cruelly, but deliberately, in service of something truer than their approval. Because a life shaped entirely around what others need you to be is not a life. It is a long, slow erasure. It means you must develop what Nietzsche called amor fati, love of fate, not passive acceptance, not resignation, but the fierce, active embrace of your life exactly as it is, including the suffering, the failure, the loss, as the raw material from which your meaning is made. Nothing is wasted in a life lived consciously. Pain becomes depth, failure becomes wisdom. Even the years you spent living for others become the contrast that sharpens your understanding of what it means to finally live for yourself. And it means you must be willing to stand alone, not forever, not out of bitterness, but in those critical moments when the crowd moves one way and your inner compass points another. You must have the strength to trust yourself over the noise. That is not arrogance. That is what it costs to be real. Nietzsche died largely misunderstood, institutionalized, isolated. His ideas were twisted by people who feared them and used by people who misread them. But here is what survived. The question he left behind, the one most people will never ask, is still sitting in the silence between your obligations and your desires, between the person others expect you to be and the person you recognize when you are completely alone. Most people live without meaning not because meaning is rare, but because claiming it requires something they have been trained to fear: full, uncompromising responsibility for who they choose to become. The herd will always offer you an easier path, a safer story, a quieter life. The only question that matters is whether that is enough for you.